people aren't in the same room. It used to be we used to have conference calls. We used to have commit calls. And there was a company where I worked a long time ago. Someone would call in and commit how much they could sell that. It was all audio. This is actually talking about the ability to then take web technology like WebEx, GoToMeeting. Gosh, there's 1,000 of them out there now that provide different video conferencing. And this sort of goes to telecommuting. This is the ability to actually give your staff the ability to meet without having to come to a location. We have a lot of schools that do this. We actually have a large school system that 32 schools. From one side to the other is 150 miles on the drive. They want to go to one school to the farthest school. So they want to bring all their principals in for meeting, but they need to share information. So this allows them to have those meetings with people still at their desk, reduces downtime, reduces travel expense. It also allows you to be more collaborative. We'll have a meeting tomorrow where Brian will not be in our office. It'll be between Ashley, my brother, and I about an event we're trying to put on. And there's going to be a lot of documentation we're going to go through. This allows us to put that documentation up, talk about it, pass control of that document between each other, let each other make edits, see what other people are commenting on, capture that, and then go action on it, instead of just being on a phone call. So it increases the collaboration. It also is going to reduce a lot of the errors or the misunderstandings that you get from conferencing. And I'll tell you, my wife works at Geico, and I think she works for a great company. But it's funny, a lot of what they do is still just telephone calls. She works in the IT department. She works in the IT department, and they don't use a lot of web enablement. And they've got businesses for it, but I always find it funny because she'll talk about calls where things were misunderstood. Because they're talking about lines of code. You're talking about 100,000 lines of code they're going through trying to decide if there's errors in it. And the programmers are looking at different things. And it's like, how can you do that and not embrace something like this, which is fairly cost effective? Small businesses can get involved in doing webinars for either promotion of business or for their own meetings. And promotion is another thing. I know y'all had Constant Contact talk recently about doing the marketing. We use WebEx to hold webinars. So when we want to have a topic on security, I may actually call in someone from Cisco or 3Com and talk about it. They'll be wherever their office is. I'll be in Macon. This allows people to actually attend that remotely, but all of that collaboration is going on about that information. So you can use it to promote your business. You can record them. You actually can record these things now and then post them to YouTube. For free, you can build a YouTube channel. So Infinity Networks has a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Infinity Networks. And we post videos there. This video from today, if it comes out okay, actually we'll post it to our YouTube site for free, where people can go back and review that later. You can do the same thing with WebEx. You can hold those kind of conferences and then post them either on your own site or on YouTube. And more and more about small business needs to look at embracing those free services. How do I integrate the free things like YouTube and Twitter and MySpace and Facebook with the things that I'm paying for in my own commercial website to then make my presence bigger, to make my reach larger? Because at the end of the day, that's really what's come down to. I mean, those of you who the world is flat, that's really where we are. We're reached a point now where I can acquire commodities at a distance. I can acquire intelligence at a distance. So the idea is that the bigger we can make ourselves by utilizing some of these things, the broader we make our client base. Reduction of travel costs, and then obviously I say it makes you feel like you're there. With WebEx, they actually have video conferencing. You get little video cameras for $50, or they're not looking at your computer, and you can turn those on. So we're having these WebEx conversations. I'm looking at Brian. So Brian and I are seeing each other. So there's a loss in audio-only conversation. We use about 40%, right? I get on the phone, and I tell a joke in a real dry voice, and Ashley thinks I'm serious. And she gets scared. I'm like, I'm losing my job. Well, I was smiling the whole time. Of course, she can't see me do that. When you add video to it, you get back that 40%. You get back that facial piece of it. We actually believe it so much that our office is about 6,000 square feet in our warehouse. So it's not very big. I can't yell and Brian hear me, but I can walk up the hall in about 2 minutes and yell at him if I need him. But we actually put cameras in every one of our computers, and every telephone call we make inside our office, video pops up with every one of them. So even if I'm just going 2 doors up, that phone call has video attached to it. It brings that conversation to where it really does feel like you are having that face-to-face without having to be physically in front of each other. Turn it off. There we go. Okay. Regulatory compliance. Now I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the detail of this because it's something that you really have to get intelligent people to look at individually. I'm a generalist. Unfortunately, I used to be an expert about a few things, and I'm a very big generalist. We have experts on different items in this, but small business, one thing that we have continued to ignore is our legal obligation to protect ourselves from lawsuits, or to reduce our legal risk when we do get sued. Because you can't stop lawsuits, right? At the end of the day, if you comply with HIPAA and someone sues you, they're going to still sue you. But if you haven't bothered to try to comply with different regulations, the penalty for failing is great now. The courts have reached a point with a lot of things now where ignorance and lack of action isn't an excuse anymore. Specifically, electronic subpoenas is the big one. Did you know that you are legally obligated to have a policy that defines how you retain your email? If you get sued, let's say you have two employees. Brian decides to send an inappropriate email to Ashley. Ashley decides to sue Brian and the company owner. They subpoena the email records for Brian and Ashley. I have to have a policy that defines how I retain that email for a historic period of time and how I will retrieve it to provide it to the court. Now, it doesn't mean I have to retain it for any particular period of time. There's no definition that says it has to be for 30 days, 90 days, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. But I have to have a policy that talks about that. Because without a policy, the court says I'm obligated to give them whatever they're asking for. And to get to that data, if you haven't stopped to think about it, can be extremely difficult or impossible. And can actually penalize you for failure to be able to provide. So, electronic subpoena talks about any records, IMs, or instant messages. You allow instant messages to be used within your business. And it's not an in-house system where you're maintaining it. So I allow people to use AOL. If I'm allowing that, I'm obligated to capture that data and ensure that I know what those conversations were for some finite period of time, so that if there is a problem between Ashley and Brian, I can provide that to the court and say, my documentation says that I keep electronic records for 30 days.